maybe perhaps not the origin, but the origin of me posting videos. I'd like for people to give me an update of what they think their perspective on blood over intent is.
My intent is to usher a heaven on earth for the benefit of all. Now, why did I do this? This actually gives my life a purpose. So you might ask yourself, and well, what did you sacrifice? Well, I sacrificed my person. I speak, breathe, blood over intent now. All I got to do now is make my intent come fruition.
Bringing the seasons. You don't have to like it, but we need to get here before we're dead and drink from the living waters. That's where all of us are heading.
Where do you see his agenda, and do you think that he's still going? If you recall, the original trip was going to occur this May. He was going to go first in this May, take a group of people in May of 2018, and he was going to record it, and then he was going to come back and then bring everybody else with him. Because I don't see it around. Remember this, I feel like, because I don't see it.
And for everybody, saying negative, comments about it, you probably don't know what you're talking about.
I'm not really sitting here questioning the effects, because I think it's subjective just because you cannot give anyone context to your own experience. And it may be that people have different, you could call it karma.
To even know the positive outcomes of it. So your comments, your thoughts don't count on this. You know what I mean? So you probably don't know what you're talking about. You haven't done blood over intent to even know the positive outcomes of it. So
for ourselves, you gotta take a leap of faith. You gotta dive into yourself, go deep into the darkness that is within you. And then you'll see rays of light.
God, with a sacred quest. If he will give us food and shelter for the night, he can join us in our quest for the Holy Grail.
Well, I'll ask him, but I don't think he'll be very keen. He's already got one, you see?
What?
He says they've already got one.
Are you sure he's got one?
Oh, yes, it's very nice, sir.
I told him we already got one.
Thanks for joining me. So here is the scroll with the directions for every single one of the Blood Over Incense community to get the Holy Grail filled up. I basically sacrificed everything. I gave up my job. Didn't even know I was doing the right thing at the time. I gave up my house because I can't have a landlord over me, or a mortgage because a mortgage is a mortgage, which equals no divinity. Can't handle money, that also equals no divinity. And if anyone wants me to send him a copy of this, I can fax one. I'll be quite happy to fax a copy over to you if you leave your email address in the bottom. And you can, I'm not saying this is going to work for everyone, because I'm not sure if I've got the Holy Grail inside me and it's just me. But I'm pretty sure from the research I've done that everyone's got the Holy Grail inside them, the vessel of Christ.
Accusations of Satanism was leveled against the Knights Templar, the very wealthy religious army that invaded the Middle East during the Crusades around the turn of the last millennium. The Templars were accused of worshipping Baphomet, a form of Satan that turned into this guy by the 19th century. The thing is, modern historians believe that it's possible Baphomet is a mangled translation of Muhammad, and that the Knights Templar were actually secretly Muslims and had converted during the Crusades. The whole thing was totally fictitious. Now, despite the moral panics and instances where people have murdered in the name of Satan, there's no evidence that there actually ever has been a widespread and organized worship of Satan, despite the fear by some that it actually exists. Instead, Satanism is a wholly made-up philosophy that focuses on the sanctity and the freedom of the individual. To Satanists, Satan is a symbol of mankind's free will. They don't really actually believe in the Christian version of Satan. They certainly don't believe in the Red Devil. It was founded by a guy named Anton LaVey. LaVey believed that Christian churches were actually quite hypocritical. So he packaged his brand of individualism with a dramatic mockery of Christian rights.
Your bangs are curled, your lashes whirl, but still the world is cruel. Wipe off that angel face, go back to high school.
Was the moon source of menstrual blood? The lives of the very gods were dependent on the miraculous power of menstrual blood.
Baby, don't blow it. Don't put my good advice to shame. Baby, you know it. Even the rabbits say the same. Now I've called the shot. Get off the pot. I really gotta fly.
Then, attributing this divine irony to pre-planned martyrdom, his execution is expressed in this book as God's gift to humanity. If we believe his book, all our evils are forgiven, and we are assured afterlife in heaven. If we don't believe his book, we're damned to eternal hellfire. That is correct, my son. As an upside-down frowns. Then, as if possessed by an attention-starved ego, one of them jumps up and screams, "Hallelujah, Jesus!" Asbestos seizes the opportunity and runs away as fast as he can. He immediately becomes suspicious of all large groups of people united under one name, each their own little niche community with many hierarchies and questionable agendas. Such group identities are dangerous because they claim to represent everyone, but at best represent a majority whose power fallaciously includes that of its dissenters. And when group irresponsibility results in disaster, those many hierarchies disperse into democracy. His suspicion extends from religion to all systems of government, countries and militaries under the haze of patriotism, police, school boards, corporations, pro-this and anti-that groups. He also becomes suspicious of his senses, because spirituality and his sense of self lay beyond them. You see, his senses are selfish, so he spends all his time appeasing their wishes. Everything he thinks comes from his senses, and most everything he senses comes from everything he isn't. But at some point, he came from some of the something he wasn't, and became everything he is. So inextricably linked to everything asbestos is, including his selfish senses. This makes him think there's something selfless beyond his sense of self, and he calls it love. But he so loves love that sometimes he thinks that's selfish too. Luckily, it turns out everyone else loves love as well, so if he's ever to transcend his selfish senses, that's his best guess how. These and other suspicions lead him to the library, where he learns to speed read. It turns out the human brain can process 100,000 words a minute, but most people settle for under 1,000 because a silent voice in their heads repeats every word it sees.
Ancient! Break your neck, break your spine! Ancient! Slap me, I'm a lunatic. My mama's so afraid of me. Someone press the panic button, nothing you can say to me. Who's in your house? Piss